Hello everyone. I am sure you have walked by the front of the school to see that bright yellow sign and the caution tape in front of the butterfly garden that says dangerous construction. And you've probably thought to yourself, what is going on in that butterfly garden? Well, a lot is going on in the butterfly garden. I am working very hard to completely redo some major sections of it. So I wanted to show you kind of where I am. I'd say we're about 50 to 60% done. So just about halfway done with the full renovation of the garden. And the renovation has involved fixing a lot of the garden beds that the plants are going in, or completely redoing them, adding mulch. And then you won't see in some of the garden beds, you won't see any plants because the plants will come in springtime. So let me show you what I've been working on. I haven't done much to the front of the garden. That's going to be its whole other project. But as you come through the little archway, you can immediately see that we've got lots and lots of rocks. So we had a kind of a pattern or a theme of rocks lining the beds being the areas that we're planting in, but not the whole garden. So some of this whole area and down here was missing rocks, and it kind of had these funny little fences. So I took those out, and the second grade, room 11, has been helping me bring down rocks into this garden and placing them. So you can see we've got, this guy needs a few more rocks around this area. You can see we've got this nice bed now. And this is all nice and neatly lined with rocks. And down this little way, this little path, rocks go all the way down. This looks just so much cleaner and more cohesive. More like the whole garden's kind of related to each other. And I did put in a few plants, ones that I already had. So this is a Pride of Madeira, and this one's going to get really big right here. But you can see the rest of this area is pretty empty. Not a lot going on in here. And that's because I pulled out lots of little plants and little weeds, and it's going to be filled with larger plants. And some of you guys might recognize this bench area. Well, look at all that open space there and this nice new rock wall. So before we had a funny little fence here, and there really wasn't much going on back here. There's a couple pots. But this is the polygala, which is what we've got in the Seven Circles garden, those really tall ones. They get to be like 7 feet tall, and they always have those purple flowers. Now this guy's really yellow because I transplanted him, meaning I took him out of the ground from the Seven Circles where he had rooted, and I put him in here. So he actually looks great for the big change that this poor little guy's gone through. Right here used to be lots of this rosemary, but a lot of it was dead. So I pulled it all out and put it in those big green bins that we have, and then decided to mulch this area, line it with rocks, and at some point there will be a little plant that goes in there. I also took these blue pots that we had that were filled with geraniums, and these are all white geraniums. So I put them all behind this little bench to again kind of create a cohesive look. And one of the funny things is I found a baby doll stuck back there. And Miss Michael in room 4, who's taught here for a long, long time, said she didn't even recognize the baby doll. So you could see how old that baby doll must have been. Here's another view. Now a lot of these rocks were buried really deep in the ground, so only just the top little portion of it was showing. So I kind of had to dig up all these rocks or add new rocks to make it look really nice. And you know, the second grade has been extremely helpful because I could not have done this by myself. All right, let's go back down this way. Over here, I also cleaned up this area. So there's the bridge. Here's a little creek, and we're kind of behind the creek in this funny little area. There's a chair there. But down here used to be just filled, I mean from here all the way to there with weeds. It's crazy, all this whole big area. So we cleared it out, And I think I'm going to be putting in some more big grasses here or some large trees. And then this whole area got cleared out as well. This whole area. There was a funny rose bush that was like laying down on the ground, so we took that one out. And then I like to trim these big puffs and kind of make them look more like puff balls. I actually have this tool that has like a 3-prong, and I like to comb the hair. And then again, there were no rocks here, but we wanted to keep the pattern, so we added all these rocks. The second grade did that just a week or two ago. And you come up this path, and over here used to be pretty crazy kind of messiness. All right, you see where we are? Here's the bridge. Here's that. A raised bed. Again, dug up tons of rocks, put rocks here, filled it with mulch. It's got 2 roses, but I'm going to fill this with larger plants come springtime. So this is kind of an example on this side of what it used to look like. Just lots of weeds, lots of kind of craziness, no real pattern, no real cleanliness to it. So this is the one I'm going to be working on next, pulling all these rocks out, redoing this rock wall and redoing the plants inside, but I have not gotten there yet. Here's another example of a very newly cleaned rock bed. It's a little one, but it's going to look really nice. And then over here, this is wild. So this area, it's pretty big, again, was not lined with rocks. It was lined with this black plastic. So we took that out and have been slowly but surely getting rocks, and now it's this massive area all lined with rocks. But in here used to be ferns. But the ferns, which kind of looked like that up there, that's a fern, they died because the irrigation, meaning the watering system from this tree all the way this half of the garden, or this bit of the garden, is broken. So that's something I need to fix. And so if you have broken water and you have 107 degree days in the summer, multiple days in a row, then a lot of plants are gonna die. So this had a little bench back here. There were probably like 10 pots, cleared out this whole area. You guys might even remember this was blocked off. This wasn't a path. There was a funny little bench there. So I took all that out, and now this is a nice little path all around it. So this one's gonna be mulched soon, meaning we're gonna be putting those wood chips on top. But it's a nice shady spot, so we're hoping we can get some moss as well, some bryophytes. And it's almost like the shape of a heart. So this is another area that's going to need lots of help. Starting to get the rocks in formation here, and it's going to go all the way down to replace this black plastic, all the way down, and hey look, there's the playground. But first things first, we got to sort out these funny little white rocks, and we're going to have to pull out a little bit of weeds and kind of whatever the miscellaneous stuff is back here, put in the rocks, and then mulch it. So you kind of see a pattern here, pulling up the rocks, pulling up the weeds, and mulching it. So just in this spot, which I thought you guys actually might think is really funny, I found 42 tennis balls, 42, a soccer ball, a golf ball, and then in like a yellow squishy ball, all in just this area. Some must have been buried for years and years and years. The gazebo is going to get cleaned. See, this rock is one of those massive ones that I'm going to have to somehow roll into this area. We're gonna probably kind of just block off this back there. There doesn't need to be plants back there. We'll do 2 pots at the front of this gazebo, but they probably won't be the blue ones. We'll probably go for a more natural terracotta look. And then over here, haven't really decided what's gonna happen with these pots yet. They're kind of pretty, but they're plastic and they can break really easily. But that's, as you guys know, is the entrance to the manzanita forest. So one of the things that we have to do when I pull out the pots is they kind of hold the shape of the pot, which is silly. So I have to take my funny tool with like the 3 prongs and kind of smash at it and get the soil, and then throw the soil over in this area to kind of fill that up. See how it's lower than that? I want to fill that up. So one of the things that one of the big changes in this garden is going to be just what kinds of plants are coming into the garden. The person who took care of the garden before really liked to put in annuals and little annuals. Annuals don't really get that large because they only last 1 or maybe 2 seasons, maybe even just a year. So they're the kinds of plants that are little, they're generally flowers, and they don't last very long. So they're beautiful, but you kind of have to keep planting them and taking them out and planting them, which is just not something that we really have the time or the energy for as this garden exists now. So my vision, my plan is to take this garden and do lots of those large shrubs that are going to be evergreen, so green all year round. They're going to be perennial, meaning they last from year to year to year, just like a tree lasts from year to year to year, or like a rose bush lasts year to year to year. They're going to be large plants like that are evergreen, always have big beautiful leaves on them, and then that will also flower at different times of the year. So come springtime we'll have lots of flowers, but then also in winter I want to have at least some flowers going on in the garden. So I won't be planting any in the winter because I'm just not quite ready for that project yet. I'll be doing that in spring. So some examples of plants that I might put in was that polygala that I showed you that had the yellow leaves because it was transplanted, and the Pride of Madeira, which was another one that I got from the 7 circles that had kind of just planted itself. I have a couple geraniums, those white ones that might go other places. Lavenders are going to be a great one. Butterfly bushes, those kinds of larger plants that will fill the space. And then later on, once the space is really clean and done and those plants are thriving and the irrigation's not broken, then we can go in later and add those tiny little annuals so that there'll really be flowers all year round and there'll be color all year round. But just like with any big project, you kind of have to make sure the foundation is stable and ready to go before you build the rest of it, right? Just like a house. You can't build a house on nothing. You gotta build a foundation and make sure that foundation is dry and set and stable to put the other parts onto it. So one of the big projects here was to dig up those rocks and to kind of clean out any trash that I found and to take all these pots and all that and doing all this big work so that later on it can be this light, beautiful space that people want to spend time in. So if you were wondering what's going on in the butterfly garden, that is what is going on in the butterfly garden. Lots of work, lots of time, lots of muscles being built here. And hopefully some of you or your parents will sign up to be volunteers. We're going to have that go out in the Wednesday message soon, and you can look on how to volunteer and come help me in the garden. I'd love to see you here it'll be on Saturdays of once a month, and it would be so wonderful to have everyone's help back in this beautiful space. All right, until next time, friends. Here are a couple of clips that I took while I was working. And if you stay till the end, there might be a funny surprise. I'm not sure any amount of video footage is really going to do this pile justice, but this whole area, we're by the little bridges over there, and the little thing comes down here. This whole back area, which is covered in dead plants and weeds. So I pulled it out. You can see this goes all the way down there. There's just a pile that I've pulled out. And there's a nice clear area there. And that pile there is just as big as this one, and it also goes down there. And I haven't even finished. Tons of dead manzanita branches that are going to have to come out. Absolutely insane amount. And I've already hauled out 3 big green bins full of dead plants.